Nigeria. Thank you very much. Well, I guess in a way, there's always been the question as to the relevance of social media in the society. People think in Africa, because of the low penetration of internet, it's just a few people on the internet and you can't really drive change using social media. But I think what people forget is if you're able to enlighten and educate a few people, those people can then become the catalyst that you need within any society to go on and talk to their family, friends, and spread the word. And I think that's something social media has done really well for the country during this election, and it's probably one of the real case study for positive change in Africa that we can actually be proud of. I don't have correct figures, and I'll say don't quote me on that. I don't have correct figures because we see all sort of figures that people throw out there. But what we're beginning to see, I think, because of the fact that most people are now mobile, in the sense that you have a huge part of the population, having access to mobile phones. And mobile seems to be the platform through which a lot of Africans, not just Nigerians, are getting onto the internet. So you're beginning to see people having the platform that can at least allow them to access the internet. Then there's a separate question as to whether they now buy the data that they need to use to access the internet. And I think the fact that the cost of mobile devices is also on the low as well, is going down. So you find a lot of people are getting access to the really affordable Android devices. And from there, access to the internet is improving. But I can't give you a precise figure. Well, so we still use microwave. We still use microwave in a few places. But what we have is there's fiber optic cable in the country. I think about 3 companies. I know of 2, which is Main One Cable Company. Then there's Glow One. Both of them brought fiber to Nigeria. But I think the struggle is still getting the fiber optic cable into inlands, getting it into where it has to be for everybody to have access to it. You will find that in places like Lagos is in the main business district. And one of the interesting projects that we did at the CC Hub in conjunction with the Lagos State Government, which is the innovation unit of the Lagos State Government, and Main One Cable Company, was actually to extend that fiber optic cable to the Yaba area of Lagos. And because of that single project, that area is actually becoming where you find most of the big technology companies trying to aggregate. Not the big ones, the technology startups. So the guys who are using technology to do really interesting things, that's where you find them aggregate. That's where the CC Hub is as well. That's where you find Konga, one of the big e-commerce companies. Jumia, which is part of the Rocket Internet, I think is also now there. You find Tracklist in that same neighborhood. You find Budget in the same neighborhood. You find Paradigm Initiative in the same neighborhood. And you also find people like the Hotels.ng also in the same neighborhood. So we already can see that if there's good investment in getting fiber into every corner of the country, you can actually turn things around pretty easily. I think so. I think it's a question of scale. So for the guys who own the fiber as well, they're probably they're not maximizing the access up to 50%. And what you get with that is certain cost will still be the same. So if we get to collaborate with government where you have relationships between private companies and say the government to actually make sure the fiber is inland and is available to everybody, what you will get is that the cost then becomes really insignificant. The cost of providing the services to the ordinary people becomes insignificant. But there's a lot of work to do in that area. In the Yaba area, we thought of this, and we're trying to do something around what you call the mesh network for the city. And the whole concept behind the mesh network is to ensure that those who can't drag the fiber to their home can actually also enjoy internet based on wireless network, wireless mesh network in the area, and they can access and enjoy the quality of that internet. But things like that would take a lot of infrastructural investment that individual organizations and companies and households cannot do. But they'll rely on governments to do that kind of investment. And I think that's where we're still struggling. I think we've seen attempts by Google to use the sort of technology you described, which is the use of balloons to provide connectivity. But no one can speak to how successful that is at the moment. And what we've also seen is that Google is interested in actually working with organizations with existing infrastructure, providing technical support, and I think funding in some cases to help make that happen. I know one thing for sure, that a couple of weeks ago, someone from Google came to us and picked interest in the mesh network that we're trying to do for Yaba, trying to find ways in which they can work with us to make it work. And I think that's going to be the model that will work, because at the end of the day, Google is a private company. They're not going to invest all their resources in making internet available to everyone. Of course, they'll benefit from it, but it's got to be win-win as well for everyone involved. So I guess the popular one, the most well-known one is Budget, which is a budget transparency startup. When it came into existence, a lot of people were not sure how such a business will operate. If you work in budget transparency, what does that mean? Who's going to pay your cost as an organization? But I think in the last probably close to 4 years now, they've done really well. I think they're probably one of the top budget transparency organizations in the whole of Africa, actually. They recently graduated from our program, so they've moved into their own space. Same in Yaba as well, which is an impressive space. So that would be one that would be top on the list. Another really interesting one, which is part of CCOB, is WeCycler, which is led by a lady called Blakis. And the whole concept behind WeCycler is to find interesting ways to encourage people to recycle their waste. So they bring incentive into encouraging households to recycle their waste. And to the best of my knowledge, I think they've actually reached close to probably over 10,000 households, if I have my numbers correct. Which is an exciting thing, and what they're now trying to do. And on top of that as well, they also generate employment opportunities for people, if I can use the phrase, at the bottom of the pyramid. So those with minimal skills, they provide interesting job opportunities for them. So WeCyclers is another one. Another interesting one is a smaller e-commerce business, which is also about to graduate from our program. It's called Tracklist. So Tracklist work more with the really, really small micro enterprises. So guys who make shirts, who make shoes, and they're looking for interesting ways to sell online, and they can't. So it's almost like a platform for them to showcase their wares and sell their interesting product. Another interesting one from CCOB is Asha, which is a guy that is making mobile and tablet apps for kids to learn about Nigerian languages and culture and things like that. That's also doing really well. And one that we're really excited about, which I'm part of, is also Tropper, which is trying to get more people in Nigeria to take physical activities seriously, because we believe that when people look after themselves, they're in a better position to also demand for those around them. To manage resources and provide the kind of services they want to see in the society. So I think that's about 5, but in our portfolio, we actually do have over 12 interesting startups that we're supporting. Well, I think the secret with going back to Nigeria is, well, this is what I say to people, and I've seen it work in so many people I've seen as well in Nigeria. The secret is knowing what you're going back for. A lot of people see Nigeria as a place full of opportunities. So, well, money is in Nigeria, so I'm going back to make money, and that's always the bad part of the recipe for most people. Nigeria is an interesting country. It's a place indeed with loads of opportunities, and at the same time, it's a place with so many challenges as well. So what the society is desperate for are problem solvers. People actually can come with solutions to a lot of problems. And what you tend to see, which is not often talked about in the media, is that Nigeria is always very appreciative of people who are willing to solve problems. You know, people don't talk about it. I think Zahra Reporter is probably a good example of it. What you do is difficult. No one else is currently doing it at that level in the country. But you can also see the appreciation in terms of the traffic you get to your sites. That's what you get in Nigeria. Nigeria will appreciate you and reward you handsomely, actually, if you're willing to solve problems for the society. Yeah, I think the model we try to use, which again is something I promote, is we don't take government's funding. That doesn't mean if we have an interesting project that we can partner on and they want to fund, we won't go for it. But typically our engagement with government starts from us identifying a problem in the society that we propose a solution to, and we make it clear to the government that if we work together on this, it will be positive for the society. And most of the time, we don't actually wait for the government to invest before we go ahead and try to solve the problem. So what we tend to do in most of the things we do with the government is to use the government as an enabler to helping us achieve what we want to do. In cases where we need to invest in some of these projects, what we tend to do is speak to foundations, international organizations like DFID, for instance, which is a good example of what we did in Lagos with the Lagos State government, where we mapped the different innovation clusters in Lagos State with the sole purpose of exposing to the government how they can actually support businesses within those clusters, as against someone sitting somewhere and coming up with policy on, say, how do you support technology startups. We mapped where these startups are, and we engaged those startups to actually be able to show to government what they need and what government should be doing for them. And when we started that, we needed a bit of funding to be able to do that. But what we did is we invested our money into it very small. Then DFID came and decided, so Lagos State government thought it was a good idea, but they didn't have the funding to support it, which wasn't our model as well. So DFID then came and funded the project on behalf of the Lagos State government, and that's how we tend to do our work. And I think the beauty of that is, corruption is high, as people will always say as well. That takes us away from that whole conversation around, trying to use government money and being exposed to what we don't want to be exposed to. So this question came out in the project I just described, actually. We were able to differentiate between the two. So Computer Village is what you call an enabler within the technology innovation ecosystem. Enabler in the sense that they make available the expensive devices and equipment, hardware that you need to make things happen. But the Computer Village is not necessarily adding much value to those hardware at the moment. While what we're doing in Yaba, it's more towards building stuff from bottom up. It's more towards the soft side of things. So we can buy cheap, affordable devices in Computer Village. How do we build content and education solution on top of that, such that the kids in Nigeria can make good use of those devices? That's what we're all about. So in a way, I think it's hand in hand, but at the same time, I think it's water parts. It's water parts. Well, I think the way, not just Nigeria, and I think the way we still look at technology in most part of Africa, you can still say it's pretty old school, in the sense that people understand that, we can't do without technology. But what we don't, they say it, but what we don't thoroughly understand and plan for is the fact that technology is at the core of every aspect of the society today. You can't do banking without proper technology. You cannot do good education without proper technology. Healthcare, you can't without proper technology. Even elections, you can't do it without proper technology. And what you get there is that we've gone past the stage where we used to simply just import the technologies we need, to the stage where for any country to move forward, you need to build what you need. And I think elections that you mentioned is a perfect example. The the guys who made the machine that does the verification and all that probably won't understand the nitty-gritty details of how people interact with those machines on the day of elections. So for you to be able to make the most out of technology today, you need to be able to build it the way your own society is interested in it. And that aspect of technology implies that any society that is serious about it will need to invest and develop talent. People that will be able to then say, apply their creativity to use technology in smart ways. And another part which I know is not, again, big in a place like Nigeria is actually research. You can't shy away from research. Because if technology is part of what we do today, it's going to be part of our future, we need to be researching into how technology will affect our society in 5-10 years' time. And we don't do that enough. A good example is everybody is connected on the continent, everybody is connected in Nigeria, everybody uses internet from their mobile devices. And you'll find that the agenda for Internet of Things is actually being driven by the West. And the West is not as mobile as Africa. We do everything on the mobile. And if we're talking about getting machines to interact with machines and machines to interact with people, I think Africa should actually be at the forefront of that agenda, because our people don't do much on the computer, our people do much on the go.
Well, Bosun, thank you so much for coming to our team.
Thanks for having me.